This is Dr. Hanuman Prasad. I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry at IARE. Today I am going to discuss a topic. In fact, I am continuing the topic titled Gender and Biology. In this Gender and Biology module, the contents I am going to discuss today is social construction of sexuality. In fact, I am discussing from previous session onwards. So this is the continuation of previous session. Let's see the social construction of sexuality. Social construction of sexuality, we read earlier that what we eat, how we eat, who can eat what, and why we eat. All these are socially constructed. So what are the things that are socially constructed? What we eat, how we eat, who can eat what, and why we eat. These are all socially constructed. Similarly, with regard to sexuality also, there are certain norms which prove that sexuality is also socially constructed. In considering the argument that sexuality is socially constructed, it might be useful to understand that who, how, whom, when, and why we desire are all strongly subjected to social influences. So now we are discussing that sexuality is socially constructed. So to support this argument, it might be useful to understand that who, how, when, whom, and why we desire are all strongly subjected to social influences. Then only it is socially constructed, right? And there are well-defined social norms related to all these dimensions of sexuality. Let's look at the continuation of this part. The following paragraphs explain how sexuality is socially constructed. So let's look at the paragraph. With whom? Let's see the conversation. With whom? In terms of who is meant to experience desire. Once again, the reproductive logic prevails. So we are illustrating the social construction of sexuality using certain paragraphs. So I am discussing those paragraphs. With whom? So this is in terms of who is meant to experience desire. So once again, the reproductive logic prevails. Often, those who are outside reproductive age are either considered to be asexual or their sexual desires are considered to be unacceptable or inappropriate. So what does it mean? So those who are outside reproductive age, means older people, are either considered as asexual or their sexual desires are considered to be inappropriate or unacceptable according to our society. Linked to the reproductive logic is the view that denies people with disabilities of the validity of their sexual desires. This is very well shown in the movie called Margaret with a Straw. So if you see this movie, this is well illustrated. What is well illustrated? Linked to the reproductive logic is the view that denies people with disabilities of the validity of their sexual desires. Means older people are considered to be asexual, or their sexual desires are considered to be inappropriate or unacceptable. So that is the conclusion, and which is also shown in the movie Margaret with a Straw. Desire is also meant to be experienced between a man and a woman. It is meant to be experienced between a man and woman, preferably of the same caste, so that we are seeing in the society, same class, that also we are seeing in the society, same religion that we see in the society, and in certain parts of the country of a different gotra, means subcaste. So in certain parts of the country, those who do not have any caste feeling, so in subcaste also they have the sexual relations. So what is the meaning of this sentence? Desire meant to be experienced between a man and a woman, preferably of the same caste, same class, and same religion. And in certain parts of the country, a different gotra, means different subcaste, are also allowed. And in continuation, when this sex is allowed, obviously after marriage. Relationships outside the institution of marriage are not accepted and is not considered respectable. So if there are some relations like sexual affairs outside the institution of marriage, means those without marriage involving in sexual affairs are not accepted and is considered irrespectable, or it is not considered respectable. Okay, it is not considered respectable. And where it is allowed, within the privacy of the bedroom. So the sexual affairs or the sexual relations are allowed within the privacy of the bedroom. And there are certain incidents where Mumbai police arrested 40 couples from hotel rooms for public indecency. So for public indecency, 40 couple from the hotel rooms were arrested. So we are seeing very frequently that in hotel rooms these unofficial sexual affairs are happening. So those are got arrested by Mumbai police. So roughly there were 40 couples in that hotel rooms. So in a most bizarre incident, Mumbai police conducted a raid in Madh Island and Aksa area and have arrested couples who were apparently spreading public indecency. So if you see many islands, so for example in Madh Island and Aksa area, so there were raids conducted by police. So because of these public indecency, because of only public indecency, means illegal sexual offense, which were not allowed in our society and which were not considered to be respectable, so which were completely irrespectable. So one must follow the respect of the nation. And they reached the hotel rooms, who? Mumbai police, and pulled the couples out of that. Around 40 couples were arrested in this raid. So that is how the Mumbai couple arrested the 40 couples who were illegally doing sexual affairs in the hotel rooms. So this was happened in Madh Island and Aksa area. And in continuation of the social construction of sexuality, so we have mentioned the details of the raid. People who were caught were made to call their parents. Obviously, they have to be decent. So for that purpose, they were asked to call their parents and also charged a fine of 1200 rupees per person They suffered humiliation and violation of their human rights. Obviously, they must suffer humiliation. And because of violation of their human rights, they have violated their human rights. Because of that, they were fined with 1200 rupees and they were asked to call their parents, must and should, and they suffered humiliation for this kind of violation of the human rights. The incident shows how state tries to control sexuality of its subjects. So how our state tries to control sexuality. So this is very important factor. And this incident you can visit in the website storypic.com/Mumbai Police. So in this website, this incident details were very well mentioned. And what? What means in terms of how sexual desire is to be experienced or expressed. It is heteronormative sex. Heteronormative sex means the sex between heterogender, means a man and a woman. That is considered normal and respectable, as it is associated with human reproduction. While it would be difficult to argue that the Victorian idea of sex only for reproduction still holds true, nevertheless, the reproductive logic persists and grants high degree of legitimacy. So, one Victorian idea of sex only for reproduction is there. So, that is not true. It is not only for reproduction, it is also for the enjoyment, it is also for the human relations. So there were several logics, there were several ideas behind the sex. Then only it is considered as the social construction. Otherwise, socially it is not accepted. Why we are discussing about social construction of sexuality? It is a part of gender sensitization. In this gender equal society, is a part. It is a part, it is to be carried by both man and woman, but in a respectable position, in a respectable manner, not in irrespectable manner, as I have discussed previously. So it still holds true, unfortunately. This is only for reproduction. So, nevertheless, the reproductive logic persists and grants high degree of legitimacy. And let's see the continuation of this social construction of sexuality. In fact, in many contexts, the word sex is used interchangeably with heteronormative sex. As I have discussed in the previous slide, the word sex is used interchangeably with heteronormative sex. In the Indian context, other sexual acts tend to be stigmatized. So, in Indian context, other sexual acts tend to be stigmatized. So, they were also made stricter. And why? The reason why sex is allowed is, of course, for reproduction and progency. Sex for pleasure is considered privilege. So that is what I am saying. Sex for pleasure is considered privilege of the society members. That is why it is socially constructed. So the reason why sex is allowed is, of course, for reproduction and progency. And sex for pleasure is considered a privilege. So, there are some of the sexual norms that seek to govern who, how, when, and why we experience sexual desires. Those who are perceived as breaking these norms are obviously punished and their rights are violated. So, there are some of the sexual norms that seek to govern who, how, when, and why we experience sexual desire. And those who are perceived as breaking these norms are obviously punished and their rights are violated. So one must give respect to the sex. So it is socially constructed in our gender sensitized society. And there were gay men which were harassed by the police, who were harassed by the police, and older people who are sexually active or ridiculed. So older people, especially who are sexually active, are ridiculed. So as I discussed previously, so older people, those who are out of sexual age, are not considered to be sexual. They are considered to be asexual, and their sexual affairs are considered to be irrespectable or unacceptable. So that is why, especially gay men are harassed by the police, and older people who are sexually active are ridiculed. And younger people's sexuality is heavily policed. Women who initiate sexual interactions are called sluts. And lesbian women are forced to get married. So these are the things that are happening in our society, in which sexuality is socially constructed. So I am repeating what are the activities that are happening in the society. Gay men are harassed by the police continuously, and older people who are out of the sexual age but who are sexually active are considered to be ridiculed. And younger people's sexuality is heavily policed, and women who initiate sex themselves are called sluts. Lesbian women are forced to get married to avoid all these kinds of irrespectable activities of sex. So these are the things that are governed by the society and government. And in continuation of social construction of sexuality, adherence to sexual norms is also sought to be ensured through the processes of internalization of these norms. So internalization of these norms is must and should. So one should adhere to these sexual norms. One should not go beyond these sexual norms. And they were considered to be illegal. They must be charged fine, or they must be taught some respectable ways of sex. An important means of maintaining these norms related to sexuality are processes of socialization which make our sexual behavior and responses seem natural. So the important means of maintaining these norms. So what are the important means of maintaining these sexual norms? So these are processes of socialization which make our sexual behavior and responses seem natural. They should not be beyond the nature. They should be natural, and they should be respectable, and they should follow certain sexual norms. So beyond the norms, it is considered to be irrespectable as well as unacceptable. Okay. And although our desires might be experienced as perhaps the most spontaneous and deepest expression of who we really are. So sexuality is socially constructed. So how beautifully it is concluded that sexuality is socially constructed. Once again you can see, although our desires might be experienced perhaps the most spontaneous and deepest expression of who we really are. So this indicates who we really are, what is our real character, and what is our real responsibility in the society. That indicates who we are and what we are following in the society. So are we following all the norms in all perspectives, not only sexual norms? In all perspectives, one must follow the norms. Then only the society goes in a proper direction, and then only we can achieve gender sensitization. Okay, so that is how sexuality is socially constructed. I hope all of you understood how sexuality is socially constructed. So this is the part of the module gender and biology. In the next session, we will continue another part of gender and biology. And the references I am following is the book by Kadambari for gender studies and a book by Rajalakshmi Kalyani for gender sensitization. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.